broadcast network, AFTERBUZZ TV. Over 20 million weekly downloads in over 150 countries, and your number one source for after-show entertainment. AFTERBUZZ TV, the destination for TV superfans. Producing aftershows for over 300 of your favorite TV shows, interviewing celebrities and showrunners, and bringing you behind-the-scenes exclusives. All thanks to E! Entertainment's Maria Menounos, producer Kevin Undergaro, and internet leader Akamai. Now, let the buzz begin!
Loving those female vocals
I
today.
know. Well, it was for the lady team-up portion of this episode, which was a carryover of the lady team-up from the last episode, so...
Totally digging the Thelma and Louise thing.
Yeah.
It's gonna be fun. Hey there, Ash vs. Evil Dead fans. Welcome to another episode of the Ash vs. Evil Dead AfterBuzz After Show. Tonight we are talking about Episode 5, The Host. Joining me on the panel tonight, Lex Michael.
Yes, that is who I am. I am Lex Michael. I'm all over the internety, webby, talky things at the Lex Michael.
And I'm Emma Fyffe. I'm all over the internety, webby, talky things at Emma Fyffe.
And I'm Megan Salinas. You guys can tweet at me at the Menguin. That's TheMenguin. We are also going to be keeping an eye on the hashtag ABTV Evil Dead. And I'm going to dance as long as this is playing.
I hope it never goes away.
We're just going to dance it out this whole episode. I hope you guys didn't come here to talk about Evil Dead, because this is just going to be interpretive dance the whole time.
Interpretive dance. This is the interpretive dance panel.
If you're listening on iTunes, you should probably go over to YouTube, because it's pretty good.
I think that's our engineer's way of saying stop dancing. So, if you guys also haven't already done so, please go to iTunes, rate, subscribe, leave a comment. We want to hear from you guys. What do you guys think of the show? We want to know exactly, and it's the best way to let the producers know that you like the after show that we're putting on. So it would be very much appreciated. Leave 5 stars, all that jazz. It's so much fun. Also, we love reading your guys' comments on YouTube. It is just a hoot. Unfortunately, we're having a really hard time looking at the live chat tonight, but like I said, we are keeping an eye on the hashtag on Twitter, ABTV Evil Dead, so we want to hear from you guys. What did you think of tonight, or last night's episode? I apologize. I watched them on Sunday.
It was tonight for you.
Yeah.
You're not lying.
So it's tonight for me, and that's the only thing that matters, right?
Yes.
Sure.
So I do want to ask, guys, this was the mid-season episode.
No!
Yeah, we're half done.
We're halfway through the season.
No.
Yes.
It needs to be longer. Thank goodness there's already a season 2.
Thank goodness indeed. But I want to know from you what you guys think about us being halfway through the season and where the series can go from here. Because I feel like in a lot of ways we've come a long way, but at the same time, we've barely gotten started.
Yeah, I totally agree with you on that, Megan. It's interesting because I feel like, you know, this episode was very satisfying from an Evil Dead kind of standpoint, where we see, oh, somebody's going through like some demon times, but they get over it. It's okay. Yeah, I agree, because it's like, you know, they got to the store, they summoned a demon, they found out all about the Necronomicon, or they're starting to kind of unfold the mystery of that. You know, Ash now knows that he needs to bury it at the cabin, apparently, and that's going to eventually, I guess, get rid of the Deadites. But yeah, but at the same time, I feel like nothing's happened yet.
I feel like we're just coming to the end of Act 1.
Yeah.
Of like, I don't know if it's going to be like 3 acts or 5 acts or what, but I feel like this is just the start. And on the one hand, that's really exciting.
Right.
On the other hand, I want all of these episodes to be an hour long.
Yeah.
And I just really want more.
But I think that the show benefits from only being a half hour, because it does feel so action-packed and so satisfying. And when the episode ends, you're like, oh man, I want more, instead of the opposite, being like, well, that was 20 minutes too long. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm just listening to both of you guys going, this show sounds really good. No, I do think, I agree, Megan, with what you were saying about it feels like the end of Act 1. I think there's a sense at the end of this episode, more of a resolution than we've gotten from episodes in the past, and we've been dealing specifically with Eligos for 3 episodes now, and we've wrapped that up pretty nicely. We know generally that, presumably in the back half of the season, they're going to end up, going back to the cabin. These storylines are going to intersect with each other. But right now, and I think it's interesting that they chose to end this episode on this long-ish shot of them on the road just driving.
Yeah.
Because it doesn't feel like and they haven't had the conversation about we need to go back to the cabin, even if that's floating around in Ash's head.
Yeah.
It feels a little bit like we've dealt with this immediate threat. There's a bigger problem facing us, but right now there's a little bit of a sense of where
do we go from here?
Yeah.
Because literally every place they've come to, they've left a smoldering wreckage.
Yeah, literally.
And dead family members.
And dead family members. They should probably refrain from going anywhere where they happen to know people.
Yeah, because they probably are not going to make it out of that encounter.
Yeah, no. And even, I mean, we'll get into it in predictions, but even in the next episode, it looks like it takes place at a diner.
Yeah.
So it looks like they need to sit and regroup and go, okay, what's our next move?
Absolutely. I wasn't here for the last episode, so I just want to say one thing. Freaking called it on Lucy Lawless being related to Annie. Nailed it.
Yeah, no, we talked about that, and we were like, on the one hand, and since you weren't here for this, we can go ahead and discuss it.
Yeah.
On the one hand, it's like, yes, totally called it. On the other hand, the Deadite turned to her and said, we know who you are, we know, and then got abruptly cut off when she cut off his head.
Oh, yeah.
So we're wondering if, yes, she's related to Annie and the professor.
Right.
But maybe there's a little bit more to it.
Right,
Like she's
yeah.
hiding something.
Oh, I think she's definitely hiding something, but still.
So my first question is then what do you think that is?
Yeah, let's talk about Amanda and Ruby in this episode.
Yeah,
Because we don't
Absolutely.
get too terribly much of them again.
Which is super upsetting because Ruby
Right?
has mystical weaponry to fight Deadites and somehow got a hold of Ash's
hand.
severed hand.
Which she's
Well,
using as a
that's-
GPS.
Okay, so this is why I absolutely believe that she is on some level telling the truth, that she is related to Annie and the professor, because it was in that cabin that Ash lopped off his deadite hand, basically.
Exactly.
So it would make sense that she could have potentially retrieved it from there.
Yeah, from whatever was
left of
the
it. Yeah, exactly. But I mean, it's
after
like
that wormhole.
Well, you know,
ripped in
just
time and space
right.
opened up.
But the fate of the cabin was a little it was questionable. So
Well, if the remake is to be believed, it still stood tall in the year 2013. So there's that. Super.
yes, yep, great, love it.
Do you guys think that the remake exists within this world? Because I know that there was a lot of debate when the remake came out as to whether or not it was a remake, a reboot, or like a sequel in disguise. Like it was secretly part of the continuity as a whole.
I feel like I'm still unsure at this point. I think, Megan, you touched on this a little bit, that like you'd really like to see Mia
I would
show
love
up
to see
in the
Mia.
series, and I would too, but until we get... But I mean, you know, they should be going to the cabin in the near future at some point within this story arc, so I think that once they get to the cabin, it'll be clear whether or not the new movie exists within this universe.
Because it was kind of on fire a little bit.
Right,
wasn't it?
exactly. Yep, there was a little bit or a lot bit on fire.
Mostly on fire.
Yeah.
At least 70% in flames. There is a tag at the very end of the credits of the remake where you see Bruce Campbell for a second. He turns to the camera and he says groovy. And when I saw that, I decided for myself that until I'm presented with a definitive word on it from the creators, that yes, it absolutely takes place in the same continuity somehow. I don't really care if it makes sense or not.
Well, and we've touched on this before. Evil Dead continuity is like a
Evil
little
Dead,
bit of a wibbly
Evil Dead
wobbly tiny.
rewrites its own continuity every single time there's a new version of it. So I'm still unclear as to whether Ash went to a cabin with all of his friends or just his girlfriend. So.
Yeah, it's really hard to tell. Sources vary.
Yeah.
We've got a multitude of sources.
All we know is that his girlfriend died a lot. A lot.
All we know is that cabin is, you're gonna have a bad time.
Yeah.
You're gonna have a bad time. Also, don't go in the basement.
Yes.
All right, so let's get back to Amanda and Ruby because they're on their quest, and yes, Ash's hand can be used as a GPS,
Yeah.
Pointing in the correct direction.
Yep.
I'm just waiting for it to pop up and like run around again.
Yeah,
but I guess
agree.
it's old.
Yeah.
And it doesn't have the strength.
You know
it
what I
used
really
to.
like about this Ruby Amanda team up is that they're so unlike one another and yet so alike at the same time. You know, because they both have, you know, this sense of justice. Ruby's might be a little warped. Amanda's might be a little more grounded in reality. And Amanda as a character is still trying so hard to stay grounded within her own reality. Like, she cannot accept that this hand is gonna get them where they need to go. She's like, you know, I was just like calling some favors, like get some profiling on some local amputees.
I'm pretty sure that we could probably use actual satellite GPS
I love
technology.
how pissed off she is about it. Every time she's faced with, I'm sorry, we're gonna do what to do? No, what? No.
Yeah.
And to be fair, that is a very realistic reaction
I
when
agree.
you've been presented with the paranormal.
Again, and I mean, we talked about this quite a lot when we had Jill Marie on the show. Amanda, in many ways, is the audience. She is the person because, you know, okay, so Pablo, obviously, we find out comes from this crazy sort of shamanistic background. And Dana, Dana's character, Kelly,
I do that too.
Yeah, she was kind of, I think you called her Dana when you were referring to Kelly when she was on the show. But Kelly is... she's kind of like the new Ash in a way, where it's like,
she was even possessed in this episode.
Exactly.
We'll get to more on that later.
Exactly. And, you know, she already was kind of struggling with some inner demons and stuff like that. But Amanda was just this regular woman doing her job, living her life. She was a cop. She was protecting people. As I say, has a very strong sense of justice. And all of a sudden, everything that she knew because her job was literally to maintain order, and now everything that she ever knew to be true is wrong.
Yep.
Yeah, she's had the rug pulled out completely from under her. And every time she thinks she gets her footing, she's presented with something new.
Yeah.
It's like, for the love of God, where do you people keep coming from?
Right.
I will say that this interaction is very interesting because Ruby talks to Amanda in a very, to be young again. I remember when I was like you.
Exactly. I know.
Just breathe, sweetie.
I know.
You know, it's this kind of meant to be comforting thing.
Oh,
but at
yeah.
the same time, it's just got this little air of like condescension.
It's a little patronizing.
It's a little patronizing, but at the same time, I can't help but wonder if it's not also a little manipulative, because we do get the sense that she's hiding something.
Yeah.
That there's a little bit more to her revenge plot than she's letting on. And her way of dealing with any dissenting opinions is going, honey, this isn't my first rodeo. You don't know what you're doing. I know what I'm doing.
Yeah.
Just breathe, relax, and let me take the wheel.
Yeah, which ultimately I feel like is going to come back to bite her in the ass. Let's get real. Though I always really like, and incidentally, this is something I talked about on the Transformers after show in the episode of Windblade. It's really cool to see a girl character, much like Windblade was in Transformers, who is so confident and just so committed to the idea that they are right.
Yeah, and I think that that's a good match for Ash because he's an idiot.
Oh, he's such an idiot.
Arrogant.
Yes.
And confident.
Exactly. And totally lacks self-awareness.
100%. As we've seen. I don't know, Lex, what's your take on the Ruby Amanda situation?
I'm listening to everything you're saying and I'm going, I am wondering what her agenda is, because almost every decision that she makes, there's about 5 different ways to read every piece of business that she gives herself. There's a moment with the two of them.
That's good writing.
Yeah, and it's great acting as well. There's a moment in the car with the two of them where Ruby puts her hand on Amanda's face. And I have no clue what the actual intention behind that is. Is it a very like, oh, you... Is it that? Is it a deeper manipulation? I don't know. Moment to moment, I have no clue. And we still know
Is it meant to be comforting? Is it meant to be manipulative? Is it romantic?
And at this point, we know definitively so little about Ruby. Even what we know about her, as we're discussing, we don't really know about her.
Yeah.
So it's very hard for me to say this or this or this, because everything that's happening right now is so ambiguous.
Ruby to me is such an interesting character, because she is this character that we as an audience accept, that we don't know that anything she says about herself, we cannot assume without a doubt that it is 100% true. And I think it can be very difficult to keep the audience interested in a character that is mysterious. But I think they pull it off really well with Ruby, because even if she's just feeding us lies, we're so intrigued. Because I think sometimes they'll go above and beyond to be like, you know nothing about this character. And,
Right.
and with Ruby, like, they're giving us all these little bits and pieces. And it's like, well, is that true?
And I think part of that is the fact that, and it drives me crazy, but the fact that they are giving it to us in these tiny little vignettes, it drives me absolutely crazy, because I'm pretty sure they had, 4 minutes of screen time tops?
Maybe.
Tops? Probably less than that. It's probably more like
closer
2.5 minutes.
2.5 or 3, yeah.
Yeah, so the fact that within the entire episode they only got this little smidgen, and on the one hand, like I said, I'm annoyed by that because this storyline is so intriguing. On the other hand, it's a good way of keeping this storyline close to the chest. Was I the only one, and I do this a lot with shows, but when she did put her hand on Amanda's face, was I the only one going, kiss, kiss, kiss?
No, you were not.
Okay,
No.
great.
I cannot imagine you were.
No.
Great. Let me know if there was anybody else.
Yes, please
rooting for
tweet
that
at
in
us.
the after.
Hashtag.
I'm pretty sure all of
ABTV
Twitter has
Evil
the
Dead.
same thoughts that you did. Every single one of them.
Well, and also, speaking of kiss, 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 Pablo.
Poor Pablo.
Do we want to talk about Pablo? Can we talk about Pablo without breaking our own hearts this evening?
Okay. This was such a great episode for Pablo, because the thing that makes Pablo so wonderful to me as a character is the fact that in spite of all of this, he is so good. He is just a good, sweet person that wants what's best. And to see, Eligos, Kelly play him was just, this is something that we've talked about a lot on this show, that's what makes the Deadites and other associated demons so terrifying, is that they get under your skin and play with that emotion.
Figuratively and literally.
And literally, yeah. Because they retain the memories of the human that they inhabit. And so, subconsciously, of course, Kelly knows that Pablo is into her. She'd have to be real dumb to not.
Yeah.
Even as she keeps being like, "Oh, you're like my little brother," and blah blah blah. Some of that is intentional.
Even if she didn't know, the demon, after hanging out with them for literally 2 minutes, could have
see that
figured
exactly. Could recognize that Pablo is madly in love with her.
He could probably go, "Really, girl? Really?"
Imagining
Yeah,
Eligos
totally.
doing that.
Yeah.
Eligos going like, really?
I have no eyes and I can see that.
Yeah.
What the hell?
But it was so wonderful watching Eligos through Kelly try and manipulate Pablo, and obviously Eligos is doing what he's doing because he expects, any guy in this position, it's clear how you feel about her, obviously you're going to try and take advantage of the situation, and watching Pablo just be such a nice, sweet, little boy about it was so, to the point where the demon literally had to try and forcefully kill him at that point because the plan wasn't working.
Take a hit.
I literally don't have time for this
I know.
anymore. I don't have the patience for this.
And just one of my favorite moments in the episode, and it was heartbreaking but also adorable, was when Eligos Kelly was like, "You can kiss me wherever you want." He's like on your forehead. And then it was that lip, and she just booped her on the forehead.
And then it's
even Eligos is like,
"You want to
What?
kiss my forehead?"
Really?
No, it's his line though. Most guys would look past it.
Yeah.
It's so sweet.
It was,
yeah, no, Pablo is just this. I want to tweet at Ray and just go, "Aww." All of those A's.
yeah, just all the A's and all the W's. Maybe
All
throw
the-
an E on the end for good measure.
But yeah, Pablo was so sweet, and even right towards the end there with him going, "Maybe I'm just not ready for this. This is because he clearly wants that, and he even asks so I'm not misreading anything,
Right.
You want to be boyfriend girlfriend,
Right.
Just so I'm not misreading
Right.
anything." And she's like, "Yes,
Yes.
just take the hit already."
And the thing is, watching it, I knew that she was obviously possessed. I mean, we as the audience knew she was possessed, and I knew that this was all Eligos
speaking, and I was like, where is she going with this shotgun thing? And then when I saw the shell in her hand, and I was like, no, don't do it, Pablo.
Yeah, at first I thought it was just meant as like a personal insult to Ash, as like just kind of like not only do I have Kelly, but I am literally taking a hit out of your shotgun right now, buddy. But that would have been a really great insult as well, killing Pablo with the very shotgun that Ash uses to slay demons.
Yeah.
Sure.
Yeah, so that would have been a really good insult.
Not for nothing, I would expect that an officially licensed boomstick bong is going to be on plenty of people's Christmas list by the end of next year at least.
I'm sure you can buy it on Etsy.
That's just what I was about to say.
Tomorrow.
If not today, the episode aired yesterday.
That's true.
I'm sure somebody's working on it.
That's true. It's totally true.
So let's talk about Ash and the attempted exorcism, because at first it's Ash who's being detained and the Brujo is trying to cleanse him of evil spirits. And I just absolutely loved Bruce Campbell's acting in this scene.
Oh my god, it was so funny.
Wonderful, tied to a post acting.
Yeah, exactly. Because it's just this look of exasperation, which is probably half. Can we cut now? Because I'm tied to a pole. Can we?
And I have a gag in my mouth.
I've literally been like this for 2 hours. Can we wrap it up?
Right.
But just the look of, oh my god, I don't know how many times I've had to say it, because you can clearly understand me even though I have a gag in my mouth.
Right.
It's not me.
I'm not the demon, guys.
Well, and watching the Brujo try a couple of things, and then I start wondering, like, how often has he had to do anything like this? Because he's going like, charms, that didn't work. Okay, let me get my chicken.
I know.
Oh, this isn't working. I thought this would go better.
And watching Bruce Campbell's, just as you say, Megan, his reactions in this scene were so funny, because as an audience, like, even if you hadn't seen the previous episode and you didn't know that Kelly was the demon, like, you can tell that Ash is not possessed, because he's just like, really?
Although if you are an Ash possessed, person, that's a good way of playing it.
Sure, yeah, great.
Yeah, just look exasperated.
Yep.
I wonder if there's any demon that could pull off the total lack of self-awareness that Ash has.
Probably not. They'd probably try too hard.
Yeah, they would. They would. I don't think you can fake that level of lack of self-awareness.
Somebody who's so disjointed from his own brain or any sort of higher thinking.
Well, it's that line the Brujo has, like, in the second half of the episode, where he says to Pablo, you found him. He's got the light of the Jefe inside him. It's just deep inside. But you found it. But you had to, it's down there really, really far.
It's buried. It's buried pretty deep.
Buried very, very deep. So they eventually come to the conclusion that Ash is not possessed and that it is, in fact, Kelly. And for the first time, we get to see somebody attempt an actual exorcism in the realm of Evil Dead, which doesn't really go so well. And on the one hand, I do think that, like, it's a valiant effort.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I do kind of, whenever I watch movies like this, or I always think back to when I watched the first Paranormal Activity, because I watched it with a bunch of other Catholics.
Okay.
The entire movie we were just screaming, "Call a priest!" And of course, when you're in a cabin in the middle of the woods, you can't do that. Yeah. But here, I mean, you have the next best thing.
Yeah. See, even though, like, in my heart of hearts, I knew it probably wasn't going to work, I really kind of wanted it to. You know, I would have liked to see the Brujo be super validated.
Yeah, because otherwise it just seems like it's all for naught.
Yeah.
As it pans out, and not to get too far ahead, I really hope that this medallion that he bequeaths to Pablo does something, because nothing we see the Brujo do actually works.
Yeah, because even when Ash takes his spiritual journey, that is 100% the drugs.
Oh, yeah. It actually seems to me that Pablo is kind of the greatest asset to Theo, the Brujo, because, Pablo is the one who sees the light of the Jefe, like, way deep down inside of Ash. And he's also the one who ultimately is able to exorcise the demon. Yeah,
and watching this scene, at first you just kind of think, oh, okay, it's just because he said, take me instead. I'm an easy target. Maybe there's more to it than that. Maybe it's that Pablo is way more powerful than he thinks. That it's his goodness that actually exorcised the demon.
Yeah, I agree. I mean, I think that it is 100% the fact that I think he did more than he realized. He presented himself as, I am a willing subject, take me instead. You know I'm not going to fight you because I would do anything to save this girl. But I think that there's a lot of power in that Pablo doesn't even realize.
As in, hey, because it was an act of love.
Yeah.
And as we know, an act of love, the power of love can vanquish a deadite.
It can.
Also, massive shout out to the effects team for the journey that Eligos takes up and out of Kelly through her mouth.
Yeah.
Which was horrifying.
It really was.
He's not mouth-sized. That
No.
looked like it was not. And even when he's crawling out and you could see his hand under her skin, it was like, oh God. So yeah, hands down, fantastic job to that entire team.
Yeah.
And I really wish you had been here last week when we were talking. When we were talking to the effects designer, he was so cool.
I'm so jealous.
Same effects team that put human teeth in the lizard, which still might be my favorite, most disturbing effect of the entire season so far.
I also love that, like, Eligos Kelly, one of my favorite details, just speaking of teeth, was when at the end of the episode, Ash was explaining to her how she, like, spit out a few teeth, and he's like, well, they were wisdom teeth, I think, so they needed to come out anyway.
Not that big of a deal. So yeah, we have we have this fight with Eligos when he is exorcised from what may have been his own decision or what may have been actually Pablo's power. And I'm thinking about it, and I'm thinking maybe the whole point of the Brujo was really just preparing Pablo because Pablo it was chosen for this life, and maybe the Brujo wasn't. Maybe his whole purpose.
He can be El Brujo Poquito.
His whole purpose in life was just to guide Pablo towards it.
Yes, and again, that would be very, very interesting.
Yeah.
So this fight with Eligos ensues, and the Brujo gets murdered, which is awful. That was brutal. That was brutal to watch.
They really like to impale people in this series, like
They do.
death by impalement. Is that the word?
Yep.
Impalement?
Yep.
That's a popular way to go on Ash vs. Evil Dead.
It's effective.
Yeah.
Yeah, and it gets me every time. That's the thing that like blows my mind about it. Is I'm like, da 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 da. Oh God. That's my reaction every time someone gets impaled.
I also wanted to get your guys' take on the way Eligos was defeated, because on the one hand, it could be like, okay, see, this makes Ash's journey come full circle. Everything, about it was a good resolution.
Right.
On the other hand, you could also kind of look at it as a cop-out. Because as cool as that, gun twirly move was, I mean, this was a demon of the mindscape. And to just kind of shoot it in the head by going, there, bam. That could be conceived as a little bit of a cop-out. What do you guys think?
I know first and foremost that it was incredibly satisfying watching his head explode. That's my first thought. I don't disagree. I just know that I wanted to applaud by myself when I watched this episode the first time. And I do like that the demon relies on its teleportation to keep from being hit. And I think as close as we get to Ash actually being clever, and he becomes clever by repeating his mantra of not thinking at all, which I think is great and fitting. Timing it so that he'll pop up against somewhere and he can blow his head off. I like it. I like the way it was done. But also, the effect I thought was interesting, the way they chose to do it, to execute this demon, because you see the splat. I don't know what I would call it other than this big exploding splat.
I don't think there is another word for it.
Green jello?
But you also see the rest of him vanish when that happens.
Yeah.
And I don't know that means anything at all, but I noticed it.
As in, we saw him vanish once.
So maybe
I'm
he
pretty
came
sure
back.
he's dead this time.
He did get his head blown up. So
he could be wandering around with just the teeth and an empty crater thing happening here.
He might be the little in illustration.
He's the little sad potato guy again. Yeah. I can get on board with that.
That would be adorable.
Oh, that would be so great if he just came back as like the weird little shrub.
Now, what would be funny is if he got shot in the head, and that's how he appears when he goes back to hell, and then all the demons get to point and laugh at him. And they're like, ha ha.
Yeah.
You got demoted. It's funny.
I see what you're saying, Megan, about it being potentially viewed as sort
Or
of a
maybe a cop-out isn't the right word, like anticlimactic.
Yes, I see what you mean by that. I didn't think it was anticlimactic. I'm with you, Lex. I thought it was incredibly satisfying. And also, Ash is such an interesting hero. He's a very unlikely hero. Let's put it that way.
That's a good way to put it.
And so it's neat. I thought that this episode did a really good job of kind of embracing and highlighting Pablo's strengths and also Ash's, which, like, Ash's greatest strength is having no idea what's going on and just rolling with it.
Yep.
You know?
That's true. If it wasn't for his ability to roll with the punches, then he wouldn't be alive today.
Ash never has a plan. Like, and the one time he had a plan, let's summon a demon, it did not work out very well.
Oh, yeah. Every time Ash has a plan, you don't do that.
No,
plan.
yeah, you do the opposite of that.
So what you're saying is that we need somebody else on the team to form the strategy, and then Ash just needs to be there to think on his feet when things go awry.
Yes.
Or to not think, as it were.
Right, to just figure it out.
Just roll with it. Just roll with it. So, I want to be clear. I did think it was a very fun fight. Seeing him teleport all over the room is really cool. And seeing Ash throw his gun and spin around in the air as his chainsaw's blaring, that's great. It just keeps tying back to the time constraints that we have on the show. I just want more.
I would have liked a little more chainsaw action.
Yeah, that would have been stupendous.
Yep.
So let's roll into the final scene in the episode, which is kind of saying goodbye to the Brujo and saying hello to Ash's new robot hand. He's got the power glove. It's so bad.
It was a power glove, but it also looked like Furiosa's arm from it looked so much like Furiosa's arm from Mad Max Fury Road, and I loved it.
It was very, very satisfying. And I think, Lex, you were the one that's saying that this episode had your favorite use of a prop, and I'm guessing that this was that prop.
Oh, of course, it's the robot hand. I mean, look, the boomstick bong is a very, very close second. A very close second. But come on, that hand is awesome. And it's very much the modern equivalent of the hand that he made that they can't reference in Army of Darkness.
Yes.
And I also really liked, and it's in the same scene, again, Ash has grown almost not at all in 30 years as a person.
Right.
And we've talked a little bit about how his first real step towards growing up a little bit was finally deciding, I'm going to travel with these guys. And I think you see them starting to rub off on him a little bit. He seems more genuine when he apologizes for the loss of Pablo's uncle than I think I've seen that character ever. And he has that moment.
I totally agree.
He has that moment where I don't remember the exact line, but he's saying, I feel like I'm responsible for this. And I don't. And it's, again, he doesn't really know. He doesn't know how to say it really, but he goes, I feel like I'm responsible, and I don't really know what to do about it, and that doesn't feel so good.
He's because quintessentially he is a very. It's not even selfish so much as it is a self-centered character. And it's really interesting to see him try to connect with other people. But we are seeing him trying.
Yeah, because he's been living alone in his trailer for the last 30 years.
Yeah.
So, it's not like he's had any roommates in that time, apart from one-night stands. So, we kind of skipped over it a little bit because we went straight to the exorcism. But there was this scene between Ash and Kelly, or possessed Eligos Kelly, where...
Eligos?
Eligos. I love it.
It sounds almost like a ship name. I don't think I'm in favor of that. But when he's talking to Eligos, and she's pretending, or Eligos is pretending like it's her momentarily having control again. And this is how great they are at manipulating and being general jerks. But I will say that had this been anybody else, he would not have hesitated to blow her head off.
Sure.
He would not have
Yeah.
hesitated to blow her head off or use
Absolutely.
his chainsaw. We've seen that. His neighbors get possessed. He's like, oh, well, whatever. And he just slices
Lops
through
them
them.
off, yeah.
Not a big deal. Kelly gets possessed. Suddenly, him and Pablo can't bring themselves to do it.
Yeah.
And an exorcism becomes necessary. But even Ash was aware enough to recognize, wait a minute, Kelly was Jewish.
Yeah, he
I
cared
fucked
enough
up
to-
that one time.
Amazing.
Yep.
No, I loved that scene because watching it, and again, it's the whole thing that's scary about the Deadites and their ability to be human again or appear human again. And every time in those scenes you go, is that real? Is that them? Is that the demon talking? Like, what's going on here? And that was such a great little detail where she says, and just be sure to put a cross on my grave. And then Ash is like,
Wait a minute.
hold on a second. Yeah.
I've played this game before.
Yeah, it was a really good callback to what was kind of a funny moment in the midst of a tragedy in a previous episode. So I really enjoyed that.
So, and I liked that, especially since we had this scene earlier where Kelly Goss was like, I will own your soul or something like that. Which, so really unsettling, and probably the most unsettling bit of the episode was when possessed Kelly is banging her head against that pillar and nobody knows what to do about it.
Right. Well, because they want to save Kelly, but she's Kelly Goss right now, and they are one and the same. So what do you do?
What to do.
Yeah.
I was trying to, as I was watching that episode, trying to think my way around what in that situation do I do when somebody's doing that and they're possessed by a demon. And I'm going, you can't go up and put your hands on their head because then all that demon has to do is bite you or twist real hard and she's dead.
Yeah.
So what do you do? Pillow? Pillow. Why did no one get a pillow?
I don't know.
There was
Brujo
no
didn't
time.
look like he had a ton of pillows.
That's a
Just
good
lots
point.
of chickens and lots of weird statues.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Put a chicken there. Yeah.
They got feathers, I guess.
It's softer than the beam that's back there.
That is true.
Softer than
Yeah.
the metal beam that she is bashing her head against. Although, and saying goodbye to El Brujo, again, it's very sad, but at the same time, we get this sense that his spirit is still with
And it
Pablo.
lives on.
It lives on, and that the legacy, is being passed down to Pablo. Like, this is his birthright.
Yeah, I agree.
And it's his responsibility to step it up and continue being the good person that he is.
Yeah.
Un brujo poquito.
Yeah.
Oh, Brujo Paquito.
And he got that medallion too.
Yeah, he did, even though it's very hot.
It is. It's very hot.
It's very hot. But
And as he walked by things with it, everything just got lit on fire.
does anybody else feel like it was super irresponsible for them to light that fire and then just walk away?
And leave it?
Maybe it's just because we live in California.
Yeah.
And we're in a drought, right?
Yeah.
It looked like that, if you would call it a cabin or Brujo's tiny little house, was surrounded by dry brush. That seems...
It does look like they'll be setting an entire valley on fire eventually.
Like a very expensive disaster on par with the Deadites, perhaps.
Like, I'm thinking about the next episode, and I'm picturing them at the diner, and I'm just picturing a news report on, on the television in the back, going, nobody knows how this disastrous fire started, but firefighters are working around the clock to try to quell this horrifying disaster.
Yeah. I don't know what the threat of forest fires is like in Michigan, but
No clue, but right now in California, because we're in a drought, this is just the
you
worst.
can't help but think about this entire area just going up in flames, and I actually would enjoy if they threw that little bit in. I feel like this is a very Southern California conversation right now, though.
Yeah. We apologize to anybody who is not living in constant fear of their city being on fire.
But I also like the idea of Ash catching this news broadcast and not putting it together.
Just like,
And then
that's
Pablo
weird.
and or Kelly going, isn't that? And by then they're already on to the next thing.
Exactly.
That would be hilarious. So, speaking of the diner, I think it's time we move into predictions.
And now, your AFTERBUZZ TV Predictions.
So, is it me or does anybody else get super, super jazzed when they see the promos for the next week?
Oh, yes.
And you just
So
want it
good.
now. Just shut up and take my money.
Yeah.
So, it looks like next week they're heading to the diner from hell. And it also looks like Amanda and Ruby happen to catch up to them.
Yes.
And that's where we finally get this big confrontation.
I want there to be just like an epic food fight. You know, like let's take advantage of because it's already a show that dances that line between being scary and funny and serious and super duper campy, and that's what makes it so great is it's not afraid to embrace that camp. So like, let's go crazy.
That's always been a really great strength of Evil Dead.
Evil Dead
of the
franchise. I
as a whole.
completely agree. So like, I want to see some pies thrown in Deadites' faces.
Even in the remake, when they're trying to play it super dark and super
yeah.
serious, like by the end, it's literally raining blood and it's just hilarious.
Yep.
It's amazing.
Well, I'm excited we talked this episode, and we talk about it pretty frequently, about Ash being the most unlikely action hero. And I love that now that both Pablo and Kelly have been put through the ringer about as intensely as they can be, they've both experienced very intense personal loss at the hands of the Deadites. I think now we're going to start seeing the two of them really start to step up and be their own unlikely action heroes. We see the shot in the promo of Pablo flying on his back across the floor, firing the gun.
Yep.
And it's like, all right, yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Which, yeah, it's going to be great watching Pablo come into his own more. And I'm looking forward, now that we're past this whole possession thing, I'm really looking forward of seeing Kelly's evolution into more of an Ash, which, as you pointed out, that seems to be her kind of, not role necessarily,
No,
but that
but
kind
yeah,
of...
there's definitely parallels between Kelly and Ash.
Yeah, so I'm looking forward to her, because, and again, we've talked to Dana, and we know that Kelly is a badass, so I'm looking forward to more of that.
She alluded pretty heavily to Kelly's ability to make a weapon out of anything. And so far, we've seen her hit a demon with a book, which was impressive.
Sure, yep, great.
But I really want to start seeing Kelly get very creative with where she pulls her weapons
I
from.
want to see Kelly start being the MacGyver of Ash versus Evil Dead weapons.
That's what I think that's her destiny, you know?
I'm so excited. And it'll be good to see Amanda in a confrontation with Ash again, which I'm a little bit worried that she and Ruby are temporarily splitting up in this episode. Maybe not like for good, but like maybe trying to cover different directions and cover more ground that way. Because we don't see Ruby in the promo.
I know.
So I'm worried, and maybe, again, I'm sure they're going for a slow burn.
Of course, yes.
So it's entirely possible that Ruby won't be at the diner, or like they might split up, like with Amanda continuing on the road, with Ruby staying behind to look at, what is the wreckage of Pablo's uncle's burned down shack that looked like it was still on fire. And it did look like we got a little bit of a shot in the woods of somebody getting possessed near the cabin. So it does seem to be like everything is tying back to the cabin, and that all roads lead to said cabin.
Yeah. I'm dancing right now because I'm really happy about the cabin, and we'll play the song from the Evil Dead musical, and it'll just
Cabin
be a magical
in the
time.
woods, ooh, it's gonna be great.
You guys are gonna love it.
And we're halfway done.
Yeah, that's another thing we talked about at the beginning of the show, but we are halfway done with this season. Yeah. So, yeah, that's exciting.
The slow burn
sad.
can't be too tremendously slow of a burn from here on out.
No, and I'm hoping, I don't know, here's a question. Come season 2.
Yes.
Would you guys prefer hour-long episodes, or would you prefer the format that they've started out with every episode being half an hour? Where
And it's a real half hour. It's not, it's not TV half hour, which is like 24 minutes.
Yeah.
I like the real half hour. I gotta be honest with you, because this is something we don't really see, because we're so used to watching because most of the programming that we get is either, your 24, 23 minutes, or you're like 43 minutes. It's an hour with commercials and credits and all that. Or you get like your HBO shows, which kind of are an hour. Usually they come in around the hour, just over an hour mark most of the time. This legitimate half hour of story it's totally different than anything that's on TV, and I just love it. I feel like it is just the right amount. It's just a little bit less than you would get with an hour-long
television program, because as I said, I would clock in around like 43 minutes. So yeah, it's just enough that you feel satisfied, but you're so excited for the next week.
For me, I think I finally discovered what it is that's throwing me off about the half an hour thing. It's that most of my comedies are, like sitcom length.
Right.
Most of the comedy shows that I watch are sitcom length. If you're watching them on Netflix, you burn through them in 22, 23 minutes.
Yeah.
And for all of my dramas, everything drama related or in any way, shape, or form that's just a touch more serious is always an hour long.
Right.
And because this is an ongoing storyline, and yes, it's funny, yes, it is technically a comedy, but because it's so much more, the stakes are really high, and that the comedy kind of comes second to the special effects and the horror and everything like that, it's throwing me off that something like that is only 30 minutes.
Yeah.
Sure.
So I keep feeling like going, wait, is that it? So I don't know, Lex, what's your take on 30 minutes versus an hour?
So I would say that it works to me incredibly well, because if the biggest problem that you're having with the show you're watching is this is so great, I need more of it.
Yeah, I do. I
You're
needed more.
in a really good place, and I would say if we're comparing it to most hour-longs, a lot of hour-longs, especially network hour-longs, you'll get a 22-episode season of 40-some-odd minute episodes without commercials, and you'll run into entire episodes occasionally that will feel like filler.
Yeah, they just drag, and there's no space for that.
Exactly. Whereas, 10 half hours doesn't feel like a lot, but every minute is used to full effect. There's nothing wasted.
I agree. Every minute counts, and yet I think the pacing is incredibly good.
Yes.
It gives you just enough of everything that, because again, I'm going to go back to the final battle with Eligos where he ultimately gets his head blown up. Of course, I would have loved to see more of that fight, but was I disappointed with the amount of it that we got? Not at all.
Less is more.
Yeah.
Less is
Essentially.
more. So that just about does it for our recap tonight. Is there anything else you guys want to touch on before we say goodbye for the evening?
I just need more Ruby in my life. She's like Xena 2.0 in a really weird way, and I'm into it.
I love her, but I don't know if I can trust her yet. I don't know. Lex?
I just want to see Pablo become a little Brujo.
Yes, I want to see him become this awesome just shaman of... Oh, he's so cute.
Brujo poquito, hashtag one little Brujo.
Oh, hashtag Pablo has seen some shit. Anyway, guys, thank you so much for tuning in this evening. We apologize about the live chat. We're really sorry. It just wasn't working out. So thank you to everybody in the hashtag. Lex, where can people go if they want to find you?
If they want my apartment? If they want to find me on the internet, though, I'm all over the place. My handle everywhere is at the Lex Michael.
And if people want to follow me on Twitter or otherwise, I am at Emma Fyffe, EMMAFYFFE. That is all F's as in Fred, no S's as in snake. They tend to sound the same when you say them into a microphone and transmit them into people's ears.
And unfortunately, Elena Jordan couldn't join us tonight. She's still out of town, but you guys can follow her at Elena Jordan on Instagram and Twitter. And you guys can follow me on Twitter and Instagram at The Menguin. That's TheMenguin. And feel free to use the hashtag ABTVEvilDead all week long.
Yeah.
We love hearing from you guys. And again, if you haven't already done so, please go to iTunes, rate, subscribe. You may even get a shout out on the show if you do. So we would very much appreciate it. Thank you guys so much for tuning in. We will see you all next time.
From executive producers Maria Menounos, Kevin Undergaro, Phil Svitek, and the entire AfterBuzz TV staff, we would like to thank you for listening to the AfterBuzz TV network. To watch or listen to other after shows and post comments or questions, be sure to visit AfterBuzzTV.com. I'm Sir Richard Wentworth, and this has been a presentation of AfterBuzz TV.
Buzz you later.
The views expressed herein are those of the hosts only and do not necessarily reflect the views of AfterBuzz TV or its owners or principals.